What I can do is just give you a little bit of context of where we are and how we got here, not just at Mphasis, but as an industry and the whole tech stack evolution over the last, 40, 50 years. And hopefully gives you a sense of where we're headed and what that means for us. And of course, I'll take questions, and as you'll see in the deck, there are no sacred cows, which means anything and everything is open to be asked. I may choose not to answer it, but you can ask anything. So how did we get here? There's only one moment in time. Otherwise, either you're too early or you're too late, right? This is kind of the journey of how enterprises ended up adopting computerization and software. It looks like Star Wars. It's kind of the whole point of making it look like. But this is how we ended up starting in the 50s, 60s, 70s. Every business was run manually. You have seen, if you've gone to banks in the olden days, physical bookkeeping. Some of you are not old enough, but they used to have physical general ledgers. You used to take a passbook, they would update the entry. The only way for you to know the balance in your account was to look at your manual passbook. Only over the last 5 or 7 years, my dad stopped going to the bank to get his passbook updated, because now he gets a text message on his phone. So every core system that we know of was really an automation of the record-keeping system to start with. Insurers started using software to do record-keeping of policies sold. We call it policy admin system. They used to calculate risk using slide rules. They turned that into an underwriting system that we now know as an underwriting system. There was a claims register, which they would actually physically note down what policy is sold to which person. They would come for a claim. They would note it down in the claims register, so they have a track record of how much money you claimed. So next time when you come for the policy, it impacts the price. We now call it claim system. So policy admin, claims, underwriting are all examples of these core systems that enterprises built over the last 50, 60, 70 years. And effectively, we ended up running businesses for scale, for uniformity, so you can actually scale them across multiple countries, multiple business lines. And of course, in the end, it helped everybody grow much faster. Along comes the next phase, which is internet. That I think all of us remember quite nicely. And in fact, that era is an important one for Mphasis, because in '98, when Jerry and Jeroen founded Mphasis, the founding mission was, let's help banks embrace internet as a way of doing business. Banking is not just, internet is not just about putting a portal. It's actually going to turn the banking industry on its head. Now let me ask you a question. What percentage of transactions do you think happen online versus offline today in banking? 90-10? Anybody else? 95.5? 99.5%. 99.5%. The entire branch ecosystem is supporting less than 1% of transactions. So if Jerry was here, I would tell him that what a bet he made. But think about it, right? The entire industry is pivoted on its head in the last 25 years. It wasn't that long ago. Just like we're having conversations around the AI boom and the bubble, they were having conversations around internet boom and bubble that time. So internet bubble burst, but the tech adoption really happened. Just keep that in mind as you do your Q&A with me. What did internet do? It helped expand the market. You can then start figuring out how to service the customer in a manner that's frictionless. By the way, internet also killed a lot of jobs and created a lot of new jobs. Why? Because the moment you democratize access, volumes explode. Number of transactions go up. Growth happens. You're not constrained. So if I am JP Morgan and I'm operating in the East Coast, I don't have to open a branch to go to the West Coast. I would like to, but I don't have to. Then, of course, came the last 20 years of digital era starting, maybe 15 years starting 2007 actually, with the advent of iPhone. What happened in the digital era? Even more democratization, personalization, ease and experience. You don't even need to get off your backside and go to the computer. You transact from wherever you're sitting. You don't even have to be connected to the internet because you're transacting from your phone. You could be 30,000 feet in the air and doing a banking transaction as long as you have Wi-Fi connectivity, right? It became about the ecosystem. That's how the advent of all the hyperscalers and the cloud providers, and it wasn't just about what a bank could afford to put up as tech. You went from everything on-prem to everything as a service. You could rent versus buy. All of that happened in the digital era, or it's still happening actually. Only half the applications are still sitting on the cloud. Anytime, anywhere. But see, the way the stack keeps changing, it doesn't really change much. It just starts getting more and more complicated because you start building more things on top. It's like a veneer. We've continued to add layers on top of the same core. So keep that in mind over the next few minutes, because digital also pushed banks into a very different direction. It was okay, even in the internet era, for the banks to say, if you want to move money, you can put in a transaction, money will move tomorrow, because they're still running overnight batch process and all of that. But the moment you had PayPal and Zelle and Venmo, you don't have the option to not do everything instantly. So this really pushed banking systems, or every enterprise, quite a bit. You remember there were days where one of the best brands in the world, bank was down, network was down for 2 days. Why? Because their systems couldn't keep up with the volume of transactions. They were not built for that. So a lot of this decoupling from core has been happening. We had this front-to-back approach, if you remember, that we talked about back in the day. Because as we kept looking at these new S-curves that kept putting pressure on the core, and even today, even after 25 years of internet, 15 years of digital, not a lot has changed in that core stack. We're still running the core from 70s and 80s. The core is still, in many cases, sitting on the mainframe. It is too complicated, too expensive, too risky to move it. So the philosophy we followed is we keep putting lipstick on the same pig. I know I wanted to shock you guys. I think I did. Because that's reality. And I've shown this to my customers also. You're not really changing much. This is the way to change. You start thinking about using data, you start building an intelligence layer, you start extracting all the intelligence out of the core into that intelligence layer, start driving the experience using the data. And at some point you'll have a core that is small enough for you to transform. That's the iterative process of starting in front of the customer and shrinking the core. With AI now as the next wave, the one thing that is clear is adoption is going to be, the change curve is steeper. So by the way, it's taken us 50 years to get AI to where it is. It's not that happened in the last 3 years. But the last 3 years, the pace is changes steeper. Why? Because all the things align. Consumer product launch was the tipping point. ChatGPT is a consumer product. It's not an enterprise product, but it became AI real. You can touch and feel it. You can experience it. Now enterprise adoption is starting. What you don't want to do is have an AI lipstick on a pig. It's the same image, but it looks much better. Why? Because now we're using AI for it. This is not the way to think about using AI as an enterprise. And I talk about this with my customers all the time. There are no sacred cows, for those of you who remember this phrase, which means the core itself is no longer sacred. To truly embrace AI, you need to think about an entire new stack at an enterprise tech level, and that includes handling the core. You remember this phrase? 2011. I'll give you a new phrase that you should think of as 2026, January 23rd. This is the way to handle the core. And now I'll put in context where we are coming in. If you think about where we were to where we need to get to, this is really the new stack that we need to get to. The core has to be cloud-enabled and modernized. All of the customer-facing applications have to be agentified because you don't want the customer to not have an experience where things are much more easier to deal with. You don't want to wait on the phone for 30 minutes. You don't talk to a bot that doesn't feel and look like a human. And of course, the middle layer is where all of the actual business transactions are happening. Core is a system of record. Orchestration is where all the actual data-driven real-time work is happening, and you're representing it through any channel using an agentic AI approach to the customer. Let me give you an example. When you deal with Alexa, is that UI or no, because you can't see it? That's an experience too. But you can't see the experience, you can't touch the experience. It's voice-enabled. More and more experiences are going to be voice-enabled. The moment you voice-enable something, you're actually putting AI on it. So a lot of what we do today, we don't realize that we're using AI. Not all of it has to be Gen AI. There's conversational AI, there is Gen AI, there's machine learning, pattern recognition. You can orchestrate all of that together to drive the same experience. So this is kind of the stack that we think enterprises will get to. A lot of heavy lifting has to happen because the most important stumbling block of the stack has been the inability to handle the core. We've talked about this many years ago when we talked about Next Labs, machine learning, TensorFlow. We launched products like AutoCode.ai. I think I remember the first analyst day we did was 2018 May. We actually gave a demo of AutoCode.ai. At that time, it seemed like futuristic. What you're doing is you're taking a wireframe from a design workshop, taking a picture of it, you're feeding it into AutoCode, and it is generating the code and the HTML page that you can see and say, okay, this is how my design will look. You're not only seeing the design, you're actually seeing the code behind it. Fast forward 5 years, that's exactly what GPT-4 did. It started generating code on its own, based on prompts. In this case, the prompt was an image. Now the prompt is natural language, English. Interesting breakthroughs have happened since. This is really the stack that we should think about. A pointer here? No. I'm trying to use the pointer. It's okay. I'll go back. Okay, I got it. If you think about why there is complexity, I'll give you a couple of live examples. There's a client that we've been working with for 3 or 4 years. Actually, there was a client we worked with in 2018-19. At that point, that customer had the world's largest mainframe footprint. And they wanted to get off the mainframe and get to the cloud because mainframe was a limiting factor, not for anything, but for flexibility. It was expensive, but highly resilient. But to make any change, because everything was point-to-point integrated, going back to the complexity I showed you on the chart earlier, we undertook a 5-year program during which we managed to retire the mainframe, but it was too complex, and not all of the applications that went off the mainframe were modernized, which means you use techniques like rehosting, containerization, but you're not really handling the tech debt. You don't necessarily always have the ability to redo the stack that we talked about, because the reason for that is very simple. We did an assessment, and it would have taken us about 10 years to modernize maybe 3 or 4 of the most complex platforms. It would have taken us $400 to $500 million of investment on behalf of the customer. And still you had no guarantee that it will succeed because it's too complex. It's written in 50s. It runs the core systems really well. So finally the client decided we will do a stack refresh, but we won't do an application modernization program. It's too complex. So they exited the mainframe and they went on colo and cloud. As we started looking at the opportunity set coming up, the longest pole in the tent, by the way, is nobody knows what sits in that application base from a business requirement standpoint. The logic or the intelligence of the enterprise that is being run by these core systems is locked in the core systems. It is not in a document anywhere. It is not in a system anywhere. It is not in a database anywhere. When they were built, it was there. But as you keep making changes every day, every week, every month, every year, you add new functionality. And I just showed you examples of what new functionality we've added over the last 25 years. There is no way you have up-to-date documentation. So effectively, the saying in software engineering is that the best source of business logic is in the source code that runs your systems. So if I have to modernize an application, and stop me if I get too technical, but that's important. If I have to modernize an application, the very first phase of the activity is going through the code line by line, either using tools or using people or a combination, and relearning from code what the business logic is. So we call it reverse engineering. If a program was supposed to go 7 years, it'd probably take us 2 to 3 years to do just reverse engineering. Rewriting the platform is the easier part. Understanding what the platform does today and capturing the functionality is the really hard part. That's where a lot of programs fail, because you either don't capture, firstly, you don't have the talent. How many COBOL experts can you find in the market today? How many natural database experts can you find in the market today? You can't. People who wrote those are long gone, either retired or really retired. So that's the complexity that clients are dealing with. And when we started thinking about taking everything we've done over the years and looking at the new stack, we said, let's flip the script on Gen AI. Everyone's so excited about ChatGPT writing software. How about we train it to read software? It's a 180-degree flip. Your input is software, and your output is English. Your input is not English, and output code. So it's a mirror image, right? We worked for it for a while. We wanted a customer alpha for it. We had an opportunity about 2.5 years ago or 2 years ago where a client was looking to do a large-scale modernization with about 40 million lines of COBOL code, mainframe DB2, payments application, highly resilient, not expensive to run, never had issues, but it took them 18 to 24 months to onboard a new customer on it. And that just wasn't acceptable by a customer saying, if I'm going to switch to you and you're going to become my payments provider, I really can't wait for 2 years. There are other companies that are doing it in 2 months, and these are digital native companies. So the need of the hour was, how quickly can we modernize the application? Again, old school way of doing it, even using tools for business rule extraction, the estimate came to about 7 years. We reworked it. We didn't have the agent fully trained, but we had a good idea of what that agent will do, and we did some early MVP of the agent that we now call NeoZeta. We demonstrated a decent success rate in terms of understanding COBOL and extracting rules. We managed to convince the client to become customer alpha. We'll co-invest. We've invested in building that up. And that's how we launched NeoZeta. What we're really now doing is we're learning from COBOL and documents and user manuals and control manuals, audit trails, risk, any document that exists, because knowledge is spread all over. And we're extracting that into a central, you see the half blue moon or sun, it's called ontosphere. We're extracting rules and converting business rules into data. We can represent that as English, as user manuals, and I'll show you that as well, as business requirements documents, as user journeys, test cases. But effectively, iteratively, you go through line of code 4, 5, 6 times, you get to accuracy of 90-95%. The process would have taken us 2.5, 3 years just to relearn. We crunched that by about 80%. So in a matter of 3 to 6 months, we were able to actually extract the rules from code and documents. Okay, now that you have requirements rewritten, we shouldn't just use humans to do it. So we built another agent in the same value chain called NeoSaba. It's not a very creative name because Saba stands for Semi-Autonomous Business Analyst. This is the product manager, the business analyst who writes requirements. So you use the same knowledge graph, that ontosphere, and now that you have requirements written available to you, the logic is available to you in a vector database, you can start writing English language requirements or user journeys. Then you need to redesign, so we trained an architectural agent called NeoRena. RENA stands for Reinforced Architectural something something. I'm sure somebody has it somewhere. I don't remember it. But the idea is, it gives you ability to re-architect the application, and you can put constraints on it, you can prompt it. Obviously, we're not expecting the machine to design the whole thing. We're expecting the human to get assistance from the machine to design the whole thing. All along this journey, it's human-assisted, because the human in the loop is extremely important. Not just one human, but many humans in the loop. Because you want to make sure you captures the requirement, you have to validate. Now, we're not expecting humans to go line by line and validate. So we've actually done something like we use 2 different types of LLMs as judge. Sorry. Once we define the architecture, we then start the process of forward engineering and rewriting the software application. Then you can use Copilot or Gemini or Claude, but you need to ingest that into the IDE. Again, the agent called NeoCrux will do all of that for you by ingesting. It gives you an environment and actually helps you accelerate your forward engineering process. Then the big aha moment came for us. Now that we have all the intelligence available, we should be able to train an agent to even run the application once it's deployed. Even before it's deployed, even the legacy has to be run. Why should you have a human monitoring an application? Incident happens, post-incident we raise a ticket, then we resolve it. We have an L2 help desk that resolves it. That L2 help desk is separate from the application development team. So you can crunch it all together. We create an AI ops agent that is looking at incidents before they turn into incidents based on the history of the incidents. So AI ops is nothing but thinking about predictive, preventive self-healing. Even your dumb car has a yellow light that flashes if something is starting to go wrong. But our smart IT operations don't do that even today. We wait for something to break so we can fix it. And then we very creatively call it break fix. You break, I fix. Every time there's an incident, I'll charge you for it. So I have zero incentive as an industry to eliminate incidents and increase availability. You have no idea how many times I've generated a deal out of this conversation with the CIO in the last 12 months. I'm like, think about it. In 26, you're talking about Gen AI, and you're letting something break so somebody can fix it and charge you for it. Why the hell will he reduce tickets? You're paying him for the tickets. Anyway, so that's another great archetype that we are calling AI ops. And this is an example of what, when we say, and many of you when I've spoken to, I've said, there are parts of this IT services market that we were not playing in earlier. I was never competitive in a per ticket cost model as Mphasis. Because that's a scale play. How many thousands of people you have in a shared service model? How many of them are sitting in tier 2, tier 3 cities? How many of them are sitting in near-shore locations? You get a new deal. I need 3 people in Argentina, 5 people in Mexico, 200 people in India. In India, I will have it in Cochin. We would never be able to do that and compete on a per ticket cost. Because the focus there was reduction of effort, price, not reduction of effort. Reduction of cost of effort, not reduction of effort. Now we are saying I will eliminate incidents, means I'm eliminating effort. I don't have to price it by the ticket, I can do a fixed price. So suddenly we are now winning deals where we had no business winning 2 years or 3 years ago. Part of the reason you've seen deal volume go up is that, both in terms of pipeline and in terms of wins. So this is, to me, kind of think of this, again, now that you have all the knowledge available to us in a enterprise, in a knowledge graph, we can even train operations agents through it. Claims agent, underwriting agent. Non-trivial, not that it will happen overnight, but now you have all the logic available to train those agents. So this is, think of this kind of as a stack that we are using to drive a lot of the AI solutions. This is kind of the beating heart of the enterprise, redefined as a new asset that we are calling Ontosphere. We have multiple examples, but 80% faster modernization, reduction in especially the relearn phase. We are getting up to 90-95% accuracy. And the best part is, all of these agents talk to each other. You make a change, knowledge graph gets updated again. So you're never going to go into legacy tech debt model because you're doing continuous modernization. This is a piece that clients really, really like, because instead of modernizing from point A, current state, to point B, target state, we are creating an intermediary asset that never goes legacy. And you can forward engineer anytime. 5 years from now, 3 years from now, every change is already captured. You're not accumulating tech debt. That has never happened before in software engineering. So in a way, this is the thesis with which we are going ahead. I'm done. Hopefully that made sense.
But is it still an efficiency play, especially when it comes to AI? Because software will now beat software. You have Devin, and if you look at Cognition's deployment of Devin, it's $500 a month versus if you hire somebody, it's still like $250 to $300, depending on the size of the company you are. So if you can call out the efficiency play, it's largely still efficiency, and this kind of revenue upside is still scattered.
Yes and no. I think if you think about what you're calling out is productivity gains. If only Devin could replace humans, Sure. I don't think the idea is to replace human engineers. Idea is to augment them. Even cognition they will tell you they'll have all sorts of headline numbers, but in an enterprise where you have the ability to bring down a global payments, take the same example. If this application goes down, the whole global payment system goes down. It's unlikely that you're going to start doing mass-scale human replacement with agents anytime in the near future. So again, go back to what I started by saying. Everybody was so focused on using Gen AI to write new software. Nobody was focusing on solving hard, complex problems. You can absolutely write faster software today. By the way, 10 years ago, when we were doing waterfall to agile conversion, same conversation happened. Now the order of magnitude, maybe you can do it 50% faster or 40% faster versus 10 or 20% faster. So I have not seen any enterprise telling me I'm going to reduce the number of engineers because I'm now using Devin or Claude. What they are telling us is I have a backlog that goes out 2 years. Can I eat into that backlog faster because I want to be able to launch product quicker? So I'm using this for acceleration, velocity, and quality. The upside, I don't think there is downside from that business, efficiency play. The downside is coming from automation of run. It's not that we will grow slower because now they have Devin. Because if you look at 2x2 matrix, there is always more software to be written. So the fact that you can write software faster means that you can write more software. I think we get a little over worried about, the Devin is going to write software, we don't need engineers. We have not seen that play out at all so far. I don't think it will play out because there is so much more to be done. If I can start modernizing applications, it's all about writing new software. Question is, can I open up hard, complex problems? Because how much more new software will you write when your core is still the same? So the efficiency play is all about run efficiency. That's why AIOps is important. It's about developer efficiency, which is why Zeta software will write software. But it's not that one agent alone will not transform the enterprise. So if you think of it, those 5 agents that are orchestrated on top of a knowledge graph, there is inordinate amount of focus on software writing software. There is no focus on any of the other agents. Because that is the bigger deflation is coming from AIOps, not from Devin or Cognition or Claude or Gemini or Copilot. The biggest deflation is coming from run automation. Because why should you have humans run systems when machines can run them? Because again, shift in mindset, no? You're shifting left. You're going pre-incident. Everybody used to tell me we have ServiceNow. Great. ServiceNow is a great ticket orchestration system. It activates when there is a ticket. The fact that there is a ticket means there's an incident. How do you go before pre-incident? For that, you need orchestration of an AI layer or a software layer on top of ServiceNow. You could do that even earlier. You could do predictive. You could do preventive with humans. You couldn't do self-healing because you couldn't ingest the RCA that came out of the pre-incident and train an agent to go fix it. Today, because I can ingest the root cause analysis of the same incident that happened 3 weeks ago or 4 months ago, the agent knows what to do. The agent might still require a human in the loop or not, depending on the severity of the incident. That is where the biggest deflation is coming from. So all of these 30% productivity passback, 20% productivity passback conversations that you're hearing is because the client is coming and saying, I'm spending too much money, I have too many people in my run operations. You go figure it out. You want to renew with me, you got to give me productivity.
So what's the path to recovery?
Path to recovery is you do it before the client asks you for it. Because
There is some revenue erosion in the process.
then the question is how much of your business is sitting in that bucket? Because remember, tech spend is not going down. Spend is either stable or going up marginally. But the internals of the spend are changing. Where the spend is getting reprioritized. This is a mega trend you will not reverse. Squeeze the run, feed new investment. This is not going to reverse for the next 5 years.
Clients can be more demanding in the process.
Clients have to be demanding.
Like 30%, it's going to go up to 40, 50.
Maybe not, because at some point the curve will flatten. By the way, the curve has already flattened in the last 12 months. The efficiencies we saw coming out of GPT-3 to 4, 4 to 4.5 is not the same in 4.5 to 5. The curve is already flattening in terms of the gains being made by pure Gen AI. Nobody is now talking about AGI either, by the way. Right? Why? Because this hasn't yet been adopted and embraced. So yes, you can say, that way I can give you paths to 60% productivity. How? Well, you're running all the operation in the US, offshoring will give you 25 to 30%. On top of that, you can do Six Sigma. You can do everything is still there. So if you're pricing a deal today and the deal goes out 10 years or 8 years or 7 years, years 5 and 6 and 7, you will actually end up seeing 50 to 60%, depending on your starting point. If you're already highly optimized and you're in 10% on-site and 90% offshore structure, then you have to layer on just productivity coming out of AI enablement. So then it may never get to 50, 60%, but it'll definitely get to 30% or 25%, depending on what function you're trying to automate. So I think the race to bottom is a very risky race. Let's cut the price is a very risky conversation. You have to fundamentally go after redoing how you deliver the service itself. Because there is only that much you can cut costs on when your focus is on optimizing the cost, but not the effort. You're trying to optimize the people cost without saying, okay, can I eliminate these 30, 40% of the people required to do this service? Now, what those people do and where they get redeployed, different conversation. They eventually will all get redeployed in other parts of the stack, because remember, most software will be written. We are not getting to a point where software will not be written. If I just look at the amount of legacy that sits in, all of that has to be rewritten. That itself is hundreds of billions of dollars worth of opportunity. That's where all the money will go that is coming out of RUN.
So are you saying the traditional pyramid that as we see it will no longer exist or ceases to exist sooner?
The human pyramid.
Yes.
Shape of the pyramid, there's no pyramid, really speaking.
Very fluid.
Absolutely. It's need-based. It's need-based. I think the bigger change is, the way to think about it is, we are moving away from pricing for effort to pricing for outcomes. I think I said this last time when I spoke to some of you. The industry operated on a P times Q plus margin. People cost, average person cost, number of per people, add my margin equals price. You can divide that by anything and make it a widget cost. Total number of tickets are divided together, cost per ticket, it becomes cost per ticket. You divide it by total, man hours or do something. You can do anything you want, but your basic equation was that. Now we're basically saying if I'm applying so much automation in predicting an incident and self-fixing it, I'm eliminating effort, but I'm also putting effort to eliminate effort. I want to get paid for it. So it's P times Q plus M plus Y I'm actually pricing an agent now. It may be one agent, or it may be 50 agents, or maybe 300 agents, but we are basically now combining some element of software with people to deliver an outcome. I don't have to build all those agents, I can buy those agents. I may decide to bundle Devin, by the way, which we've done many times. When we price for a fixed price outcome on software, we bundle Devin into the price because we're using it to deliver it. Then I have to decide what my baseline of productivity is going to be. How many story points am I delivering pre-Devin and with Devin? What is the productivity I give to the customer, and how much of the risk that I'm taking I get priced into my own deal. So that's the one big change that and that's why the question around pyramid is actually an old school question. It doesn't matter. It's about having the right skills complemented by the right software solution to drive an outcome. Now, if I go back to supply chain, of course we will need to bring talent in. We will need to bring talent at the same levels, because you can't go to the market and say, I want to hire laterals that know how to use. They don't exist. So we have to redesign the talent pipeline. Maybe we need different type of talent. We don't need functional skills, we need technical skills. So
a lack of standard industry-wide, there's also sort of a lack of standard in how to look at the outcome when you're talking about outcome-based pricing models. So then how does the pricing model sort of emerge over there?
it's okay, we can hear each other. We don't need the mic to move around.
For the live stream, actually.
Okay.
It's online.
Got it.
Repeat my question. Like, should speak from me too.
Baselines are being developed and evolved. I'll give you one example. Take the same, since we talked so much about modernization. The classical way of pricing for modernization, whether it's fixed price or managed outcome, was 30 million lines of code. We estimate the effort it will take to relearn. That becomes one milestone. Maybe there'll be intermediate milestones. And we estimate the effort to redesign, MVP, develop, deploy. Deployment has a schedule. So 6, 7 years, you break it into like maybe 20 milestones. Price the effort, add your margin, add your contingency for risk because you're doing outcome, equals price. Today what we are saying is, I have all done enough work in that mode for me to know that roughly it used to be $7, $8 a line per line of code. So 30 million lines of code, 7 into 30, $210 million deal over 7 years. Then we broke all of these milestones along the value chain of these agents. If you agentify it, we know what effort it takes. We know what time it takes, broadly, it's still too early, and we know what accuracy rates we are hitting. So instead of getting into a 7-year, 20 milestone human-based model, we are committing to the customer, we will deliver the outcome to you at $3 a line of code. Again, I'm just using random numbers for examples. And I will break it into 5 milestones and I'll deliver the program to you in 3 years. So that's a good example of what an outcome is and what the baseline is. Now, for that program, whether I need the same number of people, half the people, 1/3 the people, client has no consideration. Technically, even earlier they didn't have a consideration, but earlier we would have to have login IDs. These are the named resources. I can't move these people out. You can't hire these people. Very different model because you're doing people-based. End of the day, you're doing capacity-based pricing. Here we are not doing capacity-based pricing. In the relearn phase, I may only need 20% people of what I would have needed earlier. In the rewrite phase, I may need 50% more people of what I needed earlier. In the design phase, if I needed 10 architects, I may still need 10 architects, even though I have Rena helping me.
But you also have to share some productivity gains with your clients at this point in time. So where does that fit in?
The 210 million business is now a 90 million business. Where is all the gain going? Now that doesn't mean that I'm not making more money. I've just deconstructed the entire, what I just talked to you about P times Q plus M, I've just deconstructed that for you in a deal construct. The question was, the 210 million was never getting funded. The 90 million either will get funded or the client is still spending money running the application. I'm telling him, you give me the run and I will squeeze it by 40% and I'll free up the money and I'll deploy it back. Now we go back to what I've been saying, which is savings-led transformation. These are live deal examples I'm giving you, by the way. Forget the numbers. Archetypes are live. Sorry, you were saying?
Just in terms of how the differentiation we are seeing with AI native companies, you have the generalist agents, you have the specialized agents. Going forward, if you have to really club your domain expertise, for instance, an architect with a specialized agent, would this be a part of your deal construct to price higher than your regular services? Would this also mean your L1 ticketing service?
It's gone.
Going back to your own phrase, software is eating software, you will only have self-healing systems without human interventions.
Yes, so 2 different questions there, right? There is no question of me charging higher for a domain-intensive specialist because I'm already including that in the ontology layer. It's actually called Ontosphere for a reason. It has domain ontology. It is already domain contextualized. For the payment system, the knowledge graph architecture is already different because it's been domain contextualized to banking industry association networks, buy-in framework. When I come to insurance, I've already taken what the industry standard for insurance is. For an industry claims let's look at insurance distribution, very different standards than insurance, than life than for PNC. So I think we need to get away from, am I going to be able to charge higher for a domain skill? Because we're not charging for skill anymore. We are charging for the solution. Solution is already incorporating domain architects, enterprise architects, AI agents, human agents, and of course, anybody else who's required to deliver in the ecosystem. I may have to co-partner with AWS because eventually the application will sit on the AWS stack. I may have to go partner with IBM because they're going to use OpenShift. That becomes the stack. They will be on MQ. All I'm saying is this is an ecosystem plus a human play. We are not pricing for skills as much as we used to. We are in transition of that. Second question around L0, L1 completely humanless. L1.5, highly automated. L2, assisted by Devin, based on the knowledge graph. Because Devin also needs context. Context comes from the knowledge graph. That's exactly how we are orchestrating AI ops.
Keeping in mind what you just said about the pyramid being more fluid, not a diamond shaped, neither the traditional pyramid, and L0, L1, N2 being highly automated. What sort of people would you like to hire? Would it be more of the freshers, more of the lateral hires with 7, 8 years of experience? So where does that comfort spot for you come from? And you also talked about a lot of deals going up in areas where you previously never really had a chance to compete. So which are some of those areas whereas that
the example I just gave you on AI ops is a great example of that.
Okay. And in terms of sectors where you've really worked
across the sector. Again, we are not going and doing this in a new sector because there's no reason for me to go into a new sector just to do AI ops. Better off I'm doing it in sectors we're already playing in. So initial deals are all coming from BFSI, airlines, healthcare, because those are areas where we have a certain set of understanding of the domain ontology as well. On your first question around the shape of the pyramid and the fluidity, I'll give you 2 examples. I'm going to be publicly talked about it. There's enough and more that Deepa has posted on LinkedIn. We pivoted away from going to campuses and hiring people about 2 years ago. We now actually engage them on a 3 to 6 month intern program, and those become hiring in pipelines for us. They're actually doing live projects, mostly in new technology areas. What we're looking for is a combination of technical skills and learnability. We don't do interviews as much as we do hackathons. We just did a big hackathon at Plaksha. Yes, we used the Haas F1 team as a hook, but really for us that was the best way to generate an employee pipeline, potential employee pipeline. 3, 4 years, 5 years experience, yes, of course, sometimes you need experience because you need people to have an understanding of a certain domain or a certain technology stack. So I think the hiring will happen across the stack, depending on what needs we have. In the US, we typically didn't hire at the bottom of the pyramid. Now we are, because it makes sense. There is enough talent availability, and our ability to absorb them into the ecosystem is pretty high as well. So the pyramid will have some shape to it. It's probably more likely to have a little bit of a diamond shape versus a true. For us, it was never really a fully built-out pyramid, even in the digital days, because we weren't really doing the functionality of skills, functionalization of skills, right? Your developers, testers, analysts. Any company that had a big pyramid really came at it from the SDLC of waterfall, and then they've been trying to slice it and adjust it. The adjustment we've seen in our industry this year with a certain number of staff reductions is to actually adjust the bottom of the pyramid shape. So number one skill we are looking for is learnability versus just, of course, we have defined in quite great detail what skill competency families we are looking at, skill families we are looking at, but number one skill is learnability.
Any hiring numbers would you like to share, moving to the next fiscal?
We normally don't. We operate with a very, dynamic 90-day rolling forward forecast basis for a simple reason that if I am not creating a bench model, then why actually go and create inventory? It has to match with what I'm selling, how I'm delivering. in a way, the entire value chain is changing quite nicely. What we are selling is changing. How we are selling it is changing. What we are delivering is changing. How we are delivering it is changing because now we are blending agents and people together. So I think instead of taking some of those same concepts of bench, buffer, utilization, we're basically saying let's be dynamic because we should be able to predict what kind of people we need over 90 days. We built an agent to go analyze our own pipeline to do it. Why should I not have to use that to run my own business? Sorry, mic is there. I'll come back to you. No, go ahead. The mic is with you. Go ahead.
No, I have 2 to 3 questions.
Okay.
He wants to ask. I'll be raising the debate over here.
Sorry?
I have 3 questions that will spark debate.
No, let's go for it. No, that's fun.
Let him.
Hi. You have been deploying a lot of agents. So, going ahead, should you give out a target of hiring agents, and what's the percentage of hiring agents? Increase in hiring agents versus employees, human employees.
See, unfortunately, agents scale infinitely and work 24/7, and they also don't need time off. They don't ask for wage hike. There is no PF requirement with labor code. So this question of hiring agents, I think a couple of our clients are naming agents and issuing them login IDs and passwords, which is okay. But effectively, it depends on where you deploy the agent. If you're deploying the agent at a desktop level or at a server level, you really don't need to. I can tell you we have 300 trained agents. One agent can do the work of, you can scale it infinitely because it's a piece of software. You keep replicating it and scaling it. So I don't understand how this model works that I have 20,000 employees and 5,000 agents. Because each of those 5,000 agents can actually scale as much as you want them to scale. So this is an interesting branding exercise, and I don't think it makes sense to count the number of agents versus humans, because then it sparks a debate of, oh, we hired 5,000 agents and only 200 humans. It doesn't work like that.
So, how much of the, Bala from AIM, how much of the workforce is into the core development of all these agentic platforms, as well as how many people are there in the delivery role?
I think there is a core product team that is building the platform. Then there is a broader organization that is engaged in driving adoption. I think we announced yesterday that clients representing almost 50% of our revenue are actually on the platform today, which means I have to engage almost every delivery unit in bringing it inside of the client environment, going through the validation, security, cyber process, and of course deploying it for the outcomes that we're trying to drive it for. So the core team is a static team. Then there is a surrounding domain team, and then there's a surrounding client engagement team. In a way, I would say more than half the company is engaged in some form of another working on the platform. But the core team is obviously going to be a smaller team.
You mentioned that the company reported deal wins this quarter and most of them were AI-led. So could you please help us understand how these wins are linked to AI platform strategy, and when can we expect them to translate to revenues?
I mean, they're already translating to revenues. That's why the growth rates have also been pretty robust.
Okay.
Depending on what we've sold, I go back to the example I gave you of modernization, or even AI ops, it will take us 3 to 6 months to orchestrate the AI ops platform before we start taking over the work. So there is always going to be a 3 to 6 month ramp period in some of these deals, not in all of them. Some of them may even convert quicker. When I say AI-led, what we mean by that is there is an element of tech infusion in the service delivery that is leveraging either some of these agents or a third market agent. There wouldn't be a business otherwise to sell, because what am I going to sell it on outside of that? Now, that's why 69% of the pipeline is AI-led, not 100% yet. Why not 100%? Because there is also organic growth. We're already building a whole new platform. We might need scope change, add more scope, take more work on. We're integrating, two companies that are merging. That creates more scope. So slowly but surely, I think we are heading to a point where bulk of the pipeline and deal wins will have an element of this in it, which is why we're not breaking out AI revenue, because if 100% of my revenue is not touching AI, then I'm going to lose it. So I think that's the way to think about. That's why I gave you this conceptual picture. Depending on the type of deal, you may enter with AI ops, you may enter with modernization, you may enter with SDLC transformation, you may enter with operations transformation. But effectively, the stack approach is the same.
How many of the partnerships and acquisitions happened to build this entire?
So far, it's been fairly, I would say we are working within the ecosystem of hyperscalers and some of the big tech partners. We haven't used a direct acquisition to fund this. Most of this is built on top of the stack. So give an example. We are big users of Gemini and Claude and Anthropic. We don't necessarily need to build that. We will ingest that because it's available as tokens. The domain ontology, we've used a third-party enterprise knowledge graph, but we've customized it by domain. Again, on the domain ontology side, in some cases, we've had to go and buy some platforms for data because we need data to train the model for the domain that we are training it on. But we've built the ontology, but we bought the data. So it's a build and buy combination of building assets or buying some components of the assets. Per se, is there a chance that we will go spend actual money to buy IP? Potentially. So we are evaluating it every day. Is it fair?
Yep.
So just a follow-up on the...
Okay. After this, we are coming to you because I like controversy.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to place it before. So the example you gave, sir, like that 210 million example. So you said that the customer no longer, is transfixed on number of people, your own people deployed at the client place. So I'm just thinking like, so going forward, does this, how does cross-selling or, upgradation of the deal happen hereafter? Because you don't have a physical presence anymore.
No, I didn't say that there are no people involved.
Okay.
I said they're not paying us by the people. People are still there. People are still very much with the customer. In fact, if anything, the interaction is higher now because we are doing some more strategic work for them. Visibility to the C-suite is much higher today. I've had more C-suite level meetings in the last 1 year than in the previous 3 years combined. Because we're now actually going and solving problems that are strategic to them. Like take data center transformation. It's a 20-year bet that they will make when they're going to move from own data centers to a very different stack. And they're expecting us to help them with building the stack, designing the stack, migrating the applications, modernizing the applications. This will not happen without a CEO handshake. So that it's not humanless.
But also, sir, you said you have partnerships with the big tech and hyperscalers. So the thing is, I mean, I just wanted to know whether these people would also platformize some of the work and probably become your competitors, because OpenAI is already talking about getting into the same agentic AI. So I'm just trying to understand, like, probably will you have the
let's be very clear.
Okay.
All of the providers from hyperscalers are tool providers. They are not solution providers.
So
Even a ProServe org within an AWS or an Azure are engaged only to kickstart the design. They are not trying to be services companies because there is a financial disincentive for them to become a services company. Just leave it at that. Not just, it's a different model, different multiple, different valuation. There's a higher incentive for me to actually infuse software. We have CNBC also, right?
We have CNBC. So we could either take one last question and come back, or take a 5-minute break. Those of you can do the CNBC, will be here and you can join.
But I have to leave for airport also,
Yes.
12:30.
Yes.
Let's ask one question and then I'll come. What time is CNBC?
It's
Take one question and then I can meet informally after. Go. When it define a few, it's not like one platform will dominate or two will dominate. There'll still be quite a significant number of platforms. Because you think about, you look at the amount of capital it requires to have an LLM that is actually deployable. And still there are, 50,000 LLMs on Hugging Face that you can go work with. So I think capitalism will take care of the dominance issue. Of course, the three hyperscalers are very dominant and they will be dominant. But the fact that there are three of them means that none of them is actually monopolistic. It's not even a duopoly.
And are there domains where software, software should not eat software due to societal security or?
Yeah, I think the concept of software eating software doesn't mean that we are going to give up all the guardrails and controls. Whether it's privacy, whether it is data protection, PII information, HIPAA compliance. Software eating software is only to disentangle and eliminate the over-reliance on old systems because we don't understand what sits in that code base. Right? We're not trying to create a super, in a way, we can debate whether we are in the matrix already, but we're not trying to create a supercomputer that actually can write software on the fly. Now, whether we get there with AGI or not, I don't know. But in this context, it's a very contextual software eating software. Let's not get locked into legacy software because we don't know what it does for us. We only see the output of it. Okay. Thank you, guys.
Because if you have to look at the management commentaries, lines are blurring, commentaries are blurring, everybody is talking similar things but in their own language. So how do you first of all see your journey, 9 years, on to your 10?
Yeah, it'll be 10 on
27.
Monday, I think. So good. 9 on Monday. 10th starts on Monday. So, well, someone's keeping track of my tenure and my contracts and my renewals. So it's good to know that it's not going unnoticed. I think the journey has been pretty fulfilling because we've truly transformed the business both from a quality of customer base, quality of interaction, size of the business, positioning of the company. The early questions were all around what's going on with HP. Obviously we had a big task in terms of just reviving our own brand and our positioning with our customers. And look where we are today, right? We have some really at-scale customers where we are number one provider against everybody that you know of, big global names, big Indian names, big European names. So very satisfying journey, but I think there's a lot more to do because the beauty of this business is we are now at the beginning of a whole new cycle of adoption. We leveraged the second half of the digital adoption really well in the first 5-6 years of our journey. And like anything, this is not a straight line. Right? We've also had a couple of difficult years coming out of just the whole macro cycle. Being in banking sometimes is great, sometimes it hurts more. Cyclicality apart, I think what we've managed to do with the business is position ourselves really well. Because if you see the stack, the investment started really pretty much 8 or 9 years ago. And I think the value unlocking opportunity is pretty visible and pretty big, over the next 5 years. So if I'm still here 4 or 5 years from now, I think we would have moved the needle a lot more in this iteration. Because going back to the other comment you made around everyone's talking about the same language, I think talk is cheap. executing this is really hard. For a simple reason that any business model pivot requires you to make some really tough choices. Some of them are cannibalistic. Some of them are hard from a change perspective, skill set. I mean, you look at, our industry was never a CapEx-driven industry, and one of our biggest peers is now making a massive CapEx bet because that they realize they have to do something different too. So I think everyone will find their own path of how to play this wave. Our path is what you see here, which is combine human agents with software and find a way to go towards the journey of services and software combined as outcomes. And everything will have to be reimagined, and we're doing it bit by bit, right? Like a question you asked me about pyramid, I can even envision a model where you won't even have a fixed headcount per customer engagement. You may have a pool of people, like an internal gig marketplace for talent. They will deliver what they need to deliver because I'm signing up for outcomes. I'm not signing up for inputs anymore. We're not there yet. We probably won't be there for the next 2-3 years because it's a massive change for customers also. But I think this is a massive opportunity to reimagine how we can build a highly value-oriented, engineering mindset-driven firm. And clients are actually happy to pay for that, and we're seeing that in the way we are winning business. What we're being told is you're complementing understanding of our problems with engineering skill set and understanding of the business really well. So I'm buying from you because you understand where I need to get to, what my journey is. And you're aligning your incentives to my outcomes. If I was to give you a simple message from customers, that's the message we're hearing. I probably will have a lot more gray hair 5 years from now, as I've had in the last 9. But other than that, as long as I have hair, I'm okay.
But in the context of Blackstone offloading a substantial stake very recently, the market cues were very different. They would have stayed on the journey also without divesting. If they saw.
But Shilpa, their cycle of investment has a finite time period to it. They may be extremely bullish with the business even today, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they can still stay invested, because what is their charter from their LPs? Is to generate returns and return the money. We're not in their perpetual fund. We are not in a fund where there is no, in a way, obligation to return money. I mean, DPI is the new IRR. You heard that. Exits are more important than valuations and IRRs. So I think, I have to be really, really thankful. 9 years, they've been in the business for 9 years and 3 months. And 9 days. Now that I'm counting. But September 16th, 2016, or sometime around that time, they signed on and they put money in the business. Of course, they've done very well with the business, but they worked hard for it. I think they deserve to be able to take their money and distribute it back to their investors. It's a change for us, of course. They're no longer majority. That's a big change already that happened 18 months ago. But I think they've set up the business in a manner that with the right governance, right management, right strategy, right investments. If I was to, somebody asked me internally, when the last stake sale happened and said, is this the beginning or the end? I'm like, no, this is not at all the beginning of the end. This is the end of the beginning. It's the phase. We may have somebody else with us in the next phase of the journey, or we may just be publicly held. We don't know because we still have, ways to go. But if we keep our clients in the center of everything we do and we stay relevant to them, stakeholders will come and go. In the public market, they come and go every day. They press a button and they're in, and they press a button and they're out. I can't start worrying about who's on my cap table every day. I think we were fortunate that we had such a long partnership with Blackstone, and they gave us the runway to rebuild the business and reinvest in it, and they stayed with it for 9 years. And they brought on some really good co-investors on the cap table with RDI and GIC, both of whom are on the board, and they were sitting where you're sitting, they were sitting yesterday, where you're sitting today. So I think in a way, the world is our oyster. We can go find any other partner, any other investor to partner with if we choose to. I don't worry about that at all. What I worry about is the relevance of our business to our customers and keeping them relevant to their customers. Everything else is actually really simple.
You need a more strategic partner like Blackstone going ahead?
It's always good to have a strategic long-term investor base. So even if they're not Blackstone, they could be public shareholders, and we've had some really good public shareholder relationships in the last couple of years, because as we've gone from, actually more than the last couple of years, but we've seen some really 2 or 3 firms really step up and become strategic to us. Like our largest shareholders are 5, 6, 7% holders. I think some of them will really be those partners for us, but difference being that they're not going to ever be insiders like a Blackstone is, because they have a seat at the board, they understand what the strategy is, they're seeing us, operate the business day-to-day basis. And in a way, they're also committing to stay on, right? They can't press a button and sell. So it may be a different shape of a long-term investor, but we will definitely, that's my job, to make sure that they understand where we are headed and stay with us long-term. That doesn't necessarily mean it has to be another sponsor firm I'd love to have long-term shareholders on my cap table, always. Because I want to worry more about running the business and less about managing, anything else. Of course, we will have to make sure that we give them the time of the day that they deserve. But I rather have the focus on building, and executing, and at the same time making sure that the right set of investors are with us. But that is not something I really worry about. Blackstone has been, as I said, has been an oversized influence on us for the last 9 years, and rightly so. And this has also been a flagship investment for them in India. This is, in a way, an India brand-defining investment for Blackstone and for Mphasis. And there's been a big halo effect on our business, thanks to Blackstone as well, with our customers.
What percentage of the business comes from portfolio?
I don't think we break that out anymore, but it's more than just the portfolio companies. I'll give you an example. What is my biggest segment we operate in? Banks in North America. Blackstone is the biggest provider of business to banks in North America, especially on Wall Street. I don't have to get them to come with me to a meeting. But the fact that they've been with us for 9 years tells my customers enough that they need to know. So it has been a tremendous tailwind for us, but now I think we've built enough of our own brand equity, and we'll always be part of that ecosystem. Right? Blackstone's a little bit like Hotel California. You can check out, but you can't leave.
We'll probably take one last question and wrap up. So post earnings, I've written it down, I'm going to read it.
Yeah.
So post earnings call, you spoke about slowing demand for traditional people-based services, but strong interest in like AI-led solutions. So could you talk a bit more about this kind of AI demand that you're seeing in your clients?
I'll give you an example. There's a customer in high tech that we've been working with for the last 6 months. There was a CIO change. The new CIO came in and he said, I have too many contractors. I now need to bring in some productivity measures so I know what's the productivity of the work that I'm getting from them, because I'm paying by the hour. That's been the model for every enterprise for the last 25 years. So for the last 6 months, he's set out a set of GitLab metrics that every contractor and every service provider has to meet. They will still pay by the hour, but they're expecting a certain outcome powered by AI. They are giving the ecosystem of Copilot, or I think they're using Claude. They're using 2 parallel, Claude and Copilot, because they don't know which one will be better longer term. So they're expecting every employee of their own and every third-party employee, who they call FTCs, who work on these programs to meet those metrics. So that's kind of a very good complement example of they're buying AI-led services versus buying people. They're still paying by the people, but they want us to hold accountable to certain outcomes. And GitLab metrics are not just about velocity and quality. They're also about contribution. How much are you contributing back to my code base? Because I want to use that code base to do further development. So it's like a cycle he's trying to create. In another program at the same customer, they were paying one provider a large amount of money. It's not a typical IT services play. It is a large billing partnership. They outsource the whole billing function. And it was a black box. They didn't know how many people are engaged. It was a bundle deal. Software provider was charging them for SaaS plus services. And he's like, I need to understand what am I paying for. So they've unbundled that because they want to separate services from SaaS. And they want the services to be AI enabled versus people enabled. Because end of the day, it's an operation. Think of the top layer here. It's a business operation agent that they're trying to create versus a black box price that they pay today. So will that be productivity that they will expect back? Yeah, absolutely. But they're not cutting their tech spend. They're only trying to make sure that they have the spend available for the right investments in the right areas. They will undertake a massive modernization engagement for a lot of their operations and systems, but he's trying to free up the money to do it. So that's a good example of why AI is leading, why AI-led deals is really the only way to go. Because otherwise you won't align yourself to what the customer wants, and you won't be competitive because you'll price for too many people that you probably don't need in that engagement. Percentage?
AI revenues, differentiating them.
One of them started, one of them and then stopped.
Yeah. And how
another one has just started, and I think will stop.
Okay. And
That's
how
all
accurate do you think?
The way I see it is, how many of my customers are in a way, or how many of our engagements are in a way getting impacted with what we are building here in a manner that I can actually drive value. So to me, what's important is, are we bundling services and software together, and in how many engagements? I think the metric I gave was clients representing almost 50% more than 50% of our revenue are today on some form of a Neo IP engagement. That doesn't mean 50% of my revenue is on the engagement, but I want to get there. I want to get to 100% of my revenue, otherwise I will lose that revenue. If I'm delivering with people and I'm not going to the customer and saying there's a better way of doing it, somebody else is going to come in and eat that up. And that's what the pressure you're seeing in many of our peers in the industry, because if there is a better way of doing it, client will figure out how to do it with you or with somebody else or by themselves. So I think the right approach should be, am I able to infuse this in every engagement, every customer, versus saying, oh, X%. Because then you're saying, then I'll tell you what will happen, why they will stop reporting it. They will show 100% growth in the AI revenue and minus 5% growth in the company revenue. Then analysts will say, oh, you're losing this much revenue to AI deflation. Oh, I shouldn't have given that data. That's why the first one stopped reporting it. All right, guys, thank you so much. I'm sure it is. I haven't done the math, but I'm sure it is. Don't send it to Blackstone.
So I just wanted to understand, now that we are seeing the next 5 to 6 year run, that is going to be exponential because some of your peers, they are clocking upwards of 500, 600% stock market growth. The share price Mphasis is at 75% upside.
In the last 5 years?
Yes.
Or last 9 years?
Maybe 9 years.
9 years, the stock price is up about 7x. That math I can give you.
5 years is 75%.
That math I can give you.
Yeah.
Because I came at 435 a share.
Okay.
They're at 2,800.
Yeah.
So you can do the math, it's almost 7x.
Okay.
The last, again, this has been 2 phases for us. First 5 years was a different phase, the last 3 years has been a different phase. 23-24 was a difficult year, 24-25 we stabilized. 25-26 we are growing at high single digits. I think we will accelerate the growth in the next 5 years. Because just do one math, since you've done all the numbers. Just take one sector out, one vertical out of the numbers, and you'll see 16% growth this year. Now, I'm not asking you to do that because the market doesn't give me credit for that. But there are specific, company-specific issues that we deal with. Other than that, I think from a setup point of view, we are set up quite nicely for the next 5 years. At least the next 3 years. 5 will again, some tech stack will change. Thank